guys, it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to do my March wrap up and my April TBR. So stay tuned. So let's start off with my March stats. In March, I read a total of 9 books, one of which was audio, 5 were a combo of audio and physical, and 3 were physical. I had 1 1-star, 0 2-stars, 0 3-stars, 2 4-stars, and 6 5-stars. It was a really good reading month. I read a total of 3,293 pages. Okay, so if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes that I have written about each book as I finish them. And it also helps me to keep up with the order in which I read them and my stats and ratings and all of that stuff. Anyway, so the first book that I read in March was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and I gave this book 5 stars. This book was so good, and it's just packed full of this 80s nostalgia, and it's so much fun to read. It's like it's very throwback, but also very futuristic at the same time. And I read it, and I actually just had Sander finish reading it because the movie came out and we wanted to go and see it. Oh my goodness though, that movie, nothing at all like the book. The movie was really good, don't get me wrong, but it was nothing like the book, like so totally different. But if you're not familiar with Ready Player One, it's about this virtual world called the Oasis. And the creator of the Oasis has passed away and had no heirs. So in his will, he sort of left a challenge, a game, to find an Easter egg in the Oasis. And the first person to find this Easter egg, they would inherit the Oasis and total control of it and the creator's ridiculous amount of money, like, I don't know, billions or something like that. So our main character, Wade Watts, is the first person to find a key, and in the challenge you have to find 3 keys, and each key has a gate, and each gate has a challenge that you have to complete to get the clue for the next key, and so on and so on. And Wade finds the first key. He's figured out the first clue, and after that, it kind of becomes a race where everybody gets inspired to continue searching for these keys. And there's this giant corporation that's hired all these different hunters, or in this case, they're called gunters, to try to figure it out and find the key and find the egg, because they want to take over the Oasis and start charging like membership fees and ads and all kinds of other stuff. And most of the people in the Oasis don't want that to happen, because right now it doesn't cost them anything to be part of it. So they don't want a big corporation taking over. So everybody else is trying to get the keys before them. And anyway, it's just a really, really good book, and I highly, highly recommend you read it. Even if you see the movie, I still recommend you read the book, because like, they are 2 completely different. I mean, you would almost think they're not even related. They're so different. Okay, the next book I read was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, and I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book, and I was actually really surprised by how much religious stuff was in it. I just didn't expect that. I didn't know that was part of it. And I read this because, again, the movie was coming out and I wanted to go and see it. And Xander had actually already read this while he was in school. And this book kind of gave me like the Narnia or Golden Compass kind of vibes. And it was really interesting, and I actually really liked it. And we saw the movie, and they did pretty good with keeping kind of on the path that the book went. Of course, there's always going to be some changes, and it did have some changes. And I think to appeal to a larger audience, they took a lot of the religious aspects of it out. But it still was like a good versus evil, and hope over despair, and that kind of thing. But our main character, Meg, her parents are scientists, and her And they have figured out how to kind of wrinkle time and space, or at least her dad figured this out and kind of got sucked to another place. And he's been missing for years, and Meg and her brother and Meg's friend end up going on this journey through space pretty much to help find her father and bring him home. And it was really cute. Okay, so the next book that I read was City of Glass by Cassandra Clare, and this is the third book in the Mortal Instruments series. And as some of you may already know, I'm doing the year-long Shadowhunters read-along with Emma over at Emma Books. And this is the book that we were reading at that time. And I'm not going to spoil anything for this book. However, if you haven't read the previous two and you would like to, what I'm going to say about this book may spoil things for the other books. So you can just mute this until I put this book down, and then it'll be safe to put the sound back on and everything. So in this book, we finally get to see Icarus, and well, all hell breaks loose there. More secrets are revealed. Major changes happen in the Shadowhunters world. There are many lives lost by the end of everything. I won't tell you who though, you'll just have to read it and find out. And I gave this book 5 stars as well. Okay, so the next book I read is Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, and this is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles series. And again, like with City of Glass, if you haven't read the first book and you don't want any spoilers for that, you can mute this until I put this book down. I won't give any spoilers for this one, but it may spoil something for the first one. Okay, do you have it muted? Okay. So in the first book, Cinder, it ends with her being arrested. And in Scarlet, well, it pretty much starts out with her breaking out of prison. Now, Cinder was a retelling of Cinderella, and Scarlet is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, where Scarlet is searching for her grandmother who's been kidnapped. And the only lead she has is a street fighter named Wolf. Scarlet learns that her grandmother's been keeping some secrets from her. And as some of the puzzle pieces start coming together, Scarlet and Cinder's stories overlap. And eventually they come together to reach a common goal. And I also gave this 5 stars because I am so loving the Lunar Chronicles. And then the next book I read is Cress by Marissa Meyer, which is the third book in the Lunar Chronicles series. And if you haven't read the first 2, mute this so you don't get any spoilers. So Cress is a retelling of Rapunzel, and the characters from Cinder and Scarlet continue on into Cress as well. And instead of being locked away in a tower, Cress is trapped on a satellite orbiting the moon and is forced to be a spy / hacker for Queen Lavanna for the past 7 years. Cinder and friends plan to rescue Cress and then continue on with their plans to stop the wedding between Emperor Kai and Queen Lavanna. But things don't go as planned, and they all end up split up, and things kind of go awry from there. And I also gave this book a 5 star. So the next book that I read was my only 1 star of the month, and that was Homefront by S.C. Wright. This is the second book in the Sanctuary series, and I read the first book, which was Bad Reception, and I gave that like a 3 or a 3.5, something like that. I don't remember. It was a good story, and I enjoyed it, and the author had sent it to me for review, and I told her that how much I liked it, and she sent me this one to read and review as well. And back in, I can't remember if it was January or February. I think it was like end of January, beginning of February, I started reading this. And I had a lot of trouble reading it because there was just so many errors in the book, like typos and missing words or the wrong words used. And then the main character that I liked her in the first book, she just became this annoying, whiny brat in this book. And I finally had to put it down then. And this month I picked it back up and I was like, I'm going to try to finish it because I got like halfway through it before I put it down. And again, I think I read maybe 1 more chapter and then I was just like, I just can't when the whiny, annoying brat main character left her baby with somebody she knew was like bad and evil, like downright literally evil, and she knew she couldn't trust him. She leaves her baby with him so she could go and get high. I was just like, I'm done with this book. So I gave this a 1 star and I DNF'd it halfway through. The next book I read was Warcross by Marie Lu. This was an audiobook that I listened to with Marty, and it took a while to get through it because of his work schedule, and we could only listen to it whenever he was around. But I really enjoyed this. We started listening to this shortly after I finished Ready Player One, and I was kind of expecting it to be along the same lines because they're both like a virtual reality world kind of thing. But they were very different. And though I love Ready Player One and I gave that 5 stars, this was a more realistic take, I think, on it. And it's something that I could see being a real thing in the not too distant future. And speaking of, I really hope that somebody creates this game because I want to play it. It sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, I would totally play this. Can somebody please make it? Okay. Anyway, so this is about, well, a virtual reality game, and there's this big Warcross championship that our main character, Amika, has glitched herself into on the opening game. And instead of getting arrested and getting in a lot of trouble, the creator has flown her out to Japan and wants to hire her as a bounty hunter to try to find somebody else that's hacking into the game and trying to cause problems and figure out what they're doing exactly. And this is kind of the dream job for her, and she's so excited about it, and she gets to participate in the Warcross championships and solving a mystery at the same time, and it's really good. I really enjoyed it. And so I gave this a 4.25. It was a little bit higher than a 4 for me, but not quite a 5 because I was kind of with how it ended. It seemed like it just abruptly ended. But this is a duology, and so the story will continue. I'll probably have to reread this again whenever it's time for the sequel to come out. But that's okay. Because I enjoyed it, I'm okay with rereading it. So, and then the next book I read was Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, and this was also part of the Shadowhunter read-along. And of course, I gave this a 5 star. And it's so funny, like rereading these after so many years of, between now and when I first read them, that it's almost like reading them again for the first time because there's so much that I actually don't remember. I went in feeling like, I've read all these before, I'm going to remember all of this stuff, but I didn't. As I was reading, I would kind of remember certain things, but for the most part, it was like reading it for the first time. And I loved it just as much this time as I loved it the first time I read it. And I think Cassandra Clare is brilliant, and I love her. So this book was the first book in the Infernal Devices series, but it's still part of the whole Shadowhunter world that we're introduced to in the Mortal Instruments. Except this one is set in 1878 in London. And Tessa Gray crosses the ocean to join her brother after her Aunt Harriet passes away. But upon arriving in London, she's kidnapped by the Dark Sisters and learns that she has the ability to transform, which the Dark Sisters force her to do repeatedly in order to prepare her for the Magister. She's rescued by Will Herondale, one of the Shadowhunters, and she agrees to help the Shadowhunters with the problem they're having if they'll agree to help her find her brother. And I'm just loving rereading all of these books. This was such a good idea, and I'm so glad that Emma over at Emma Books came up with this. And I'm looking forward to continuing this throughout the year, and I'm just so excited for all of it. And the last book that I read for the month was Map of Shadows by J.F. Penn, and this is another book that was sent to me by an author for review. And unlike the other one, I loved this book so freaking much. It was just like, it's only 192 pages, but they packed so much into those 192 pages, and it just grips you right from the beginning, and it's just like, bam, you know, it's a full on go, go, go the whole time, and it's an exciting ride, and I highly recommend that you read this. It's really, really good, and I could totally see it playing out like a movie in my head the entire time. So Sienna Farron's grandfather passes away, and he's left her his map shop in Bath, England. When she arrives, she's thrown into the world of map walkers and learns that she possesses a magical ability to travel through maps. The Ministry of Maps is an agency charged with maintaining the borders between this world and the Borderlands, which is the place where things that have been written out of history end up. And it's not a very nice place to be. And the people there want into our world. And Sienna must help the Map of Ministries protect the border at all costs. And I also gave this book a 5-star because it was really good. And I would definitely want to read the sequel to this. And that is everything that I read in the month of March. So now on to my current reads. So in March, I started reading The Wizards of Once with Xander, and I only got to page 110 because then I got sick, and then I lost my voice, and then I was still sick, and so it just kind of got put away. And so this month I want to finish reading this with him. And this says, once there was magic, and the magic lived in the dark forests until the warriors came. Czar is a wizard boy who has no magic and will do anything to get it. Wish is a warrior girl, but she owns something forbidden, something magical, and she will do anything to conceal it. When stars collide, Czar and Wish must forget their differences if they are ever going to make it to the hidden dungeons at Warrior Fort, where something that has been sleeping for hundreds of years is stirring. And this book is super cute. It's got lots of little like drawings in it, like this. And it's super cute, and Xander's really enjoying it. I'm enjoying reading it with him. And yeah, we're having fun with this. Also right now I am reading Ferris by Marissa Meyer, and this is a novella that goes along with the Lunar Chronicles series, and it kind of goes between Cress and Winter. And this is Queen Lavanna's backstory. And oh my goodness. Look at this. That's just so pretty. Now on to my TBR. So these books are in no particular order, just that I would like to get to them during this month. So the first book I have here is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And this says, from the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Tuesdays with Morrie, comes this long-awaited follow-up. An enchanting, beautifully crafted novel that explores a mystery only heaven can unfold. Eddie is a grizzled war veteran who feels trapped in a meaningless life of fixing rides at a seaside amusement park. As the park has changed over the years, from the loop-the-loop to the pipeline plunge, so too has Eddie changed, from optimistic youth to embittered old age. His days are a dull routine of work, loneliness, and regret. Then, on his 83rd birthday, Eddie dies in a tragic accident, trying to save a little girl from a falling cart. With his final breath, he feels 2 small hands in his, and then nothing. He awakens in the afterlife, where he learns that heaven is not a lush Garden of Eden, but a place where your earthly life is explained to you by 5 people who were in it. These people may have been loved ones or distant strangers, yet each of them changed your path forever. One by one, Eddie's 5 people illuminate the unseen connections of his earthly life. As the story builds to its stunning conclusion, Eddie desperately seeks redemption in the still unknown last act of his life. Was it a heroic success or a devastating failure? The answer, which comes from the most likely of sources, is as inspirational as a glimpse of heaven itself. In The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, Mitch Albom gives us an astoundingly original story that will change everything you've ever thought about the afterlife and the meaning of our lives here on Earth. With a timeless tale appealing to all, this is a book that readers of fine fiction and those who love Tuesdays with Morrie will treasure. And I just thought it sounded really interesting. Okay, next up is Taking Chances, Hot Hollywood Nights, Book 1 by M. Andrews. And this is a very small, I'm sure going to be a steamy, fun read. And this came in one of my Guilty Pleasures book crates. And I read another one of her books that came in that and loved it so much. So I'm hoping I'll love this one just as much. It says, Jason Reynolds is my boss, my hot as hell man whore sex god of a boss. I love my job and I would never do anything to risk that. But it's a constant daily struggle of me wanting to be the good little employee when all I really want to do is sit on his face. Nina Cartwright is a ball-busting, big-mouth pain in my ass. A pain in the ass I can't stop thinking about or dreaming about. For the past 18 months, I've lived in blue ball hell. Well, I'm done waiting. I want Nina more than anything, and I will stop at nothing to make her mine. Can Jason change his womanizing ways to be the man Nina deserves? Can Nina get past her reservations about Jason and take this chance with him? So, yeah, just hot, steamy, fun book. Okay, and then the next book is an arc of Out of the Blue by Sophie Cameron. And this book comes out in May of 2018. And this was sent to me by Fierce Reads when I won the Fierce Reads bingo from Y'all Fest a while back. And this is about these beings, kind of like angels or something, are falling from the sky and dying when they land. But then the main character, Jaya, whose life seems to be falling apart, finds a female being that's fallen from the sky that isn't dead, and she nurses it back to health. And this is Sophie Cameron's first novel. Okay, next up is Lying in Wait by Liz Nugent. And this was an arc that I won from a Goodreads giveaway. And this book comes out June 12th of 2018. And it says, my husband did not mean to kill Annie Doyle, but the lying tramp deserved it. On the surface, Lydia Fitzsimmons' life seems ideal. Her husband, Andrew, is a prosperous, respected judge. They live in the spacious, comfortable, well-appointed house where she was raised. And she is utterly, obsessively devoted to her son, Lawrence, her adored only child, her pride and joy. But Andrew's murder of Annie Doyle, accidental or not, sets into motion a dark, downward spiral. No one knows what he and Lydia were doing with a drug-addled prostitute late at night on a deserted stretch of the Strand near Dublin. And no one sees them stuff her body into the trunk of their car and bury it in their tidy suburban garden, hoping that will put the matter to rest. Annie was a junkie from the wrong side of the tracks. Surely no one will miss her or care to discover what happened to her. Except that Annie has a sister, Karen, who has fared much better in life and is desperate to find her. And when Karen crosses paths with Lawrence, isolated and lonely, things begin to unravel fast. Lawrence may be overweight and ungainly and mercilessly bullied at school, but he's more clever than he's given credit for. He knows that something is very, very wrong in the Fitzsimmons' household, and he is determined to discover the truth. Next is another giveaway from Goodreads that I won, and it is the arc of The Death of Miss Westaway by Ruth Ware. And this comes out May 29th of 2018. And it says, on a day that begins like any other, Hal receives a mysterious letter bequeathing her a substantial inheritance. She realizes very quickly that the letter was sent to the wrong person, but also that the cold reading skills she's honed as a tarot card reader might help her claim the money. Soon, Hal finds herself at the funeral of the deceased, where it dawns on her that there is something very, very wrong about this strange situation and the inheritance at the center of it. Full of spellbinding menace and told in Ruth Ware's signature suspenseful style, this is an unputdownable thriller from the Agatha Christie of our time. Next up is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, and it says, Leia is a slave, Elias is a soldier, neither is free. Under the Martial Empire, defiance is met with death. Leia and her family do not challenge the Empire. They've seen what happens to those who do. But when Leia's brother is arrested for treason, she is forced to make a decision. In exchange for help from rebels who promise to rescue her brother, she will risk her life to spy for them from within the Empire's greatest military academy. There, Leia meets Elias, the school's finest soldier, and secretly, its most unwilling. He and Leia will soon realize that their destinies are intertwined and that their choices will change the fate of the Empire itself. And I also have A Torch in the Night, and if I happen to get through all of the other books that I want to get through this month, I might pick that one up. I don't know. And the third and I believe final book in this series, which is called A Reaper at the Gates, comes out this month as well. Okay, next up is Alice Takes Back Wonderland by David D. Simmons. And oh, I'm so excited to read this book. This is definitely going to be a book that I am going to be reading during my 24 and 48 read-a-thon, because I've had this book on my shelf for months now and I've been so excited to read it, and I just haven't had the time, and I came across it and I was like, oh, why haven't I read this yet? And it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling, of course, but it's so much more than that. So it says, after 10 years of being told she can't tell the difference between real life and a fairy tale, Alice finally stops believing in Wonderland. So when the White Rabbit shows up at her house, Alice thinks she's going crazy. Only when the White Rabbit kicks her down the rabbit hole does Alice realize that the magical land she visited as a child is real. But all is not well in Wonderland. The Ace of Spades has taken over Wonderland and is systematically dismantling all that makes it wonderful. Plain is replacing wondrous, logical is replacing magical, and reason is destroying madness. Alice decides she must help the Mad Hatter and all those fighting to keep Wonderland wonderful. But how can she face such danger when she is just a girl? Alice must journey across the stars to unite an army. She discovers that fairy tales are real in the magical world beyond the rabbit hole, but they are not the fairy tales she knows. Fairy tales have dangers and adventures of their own, and Alice must overcome the trials of these old stories if she wants to unite the lands against Ace. With the help of Peter Pan, Pinocchio, Snow White, and heroes old and new, Alice may have the strength to take back Wonderland. And I love these kind of books. Like the Lunar Chronicles and like the show Once Upon a Time. I love these kinds where you like have not only the fairy tale retellings, but them kind of merging together. Ah, love it so much. Okay, and continuing with the Shadowhunter read-along, I'll be reading City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare, which is book 4 in the Mortal Instruments series. And last but not least, I will be reading Renegades by Marissa Meyer. And this isn't part of the Lunar Chronicles, if you don't already know that. And all I know about this is kind of there's superheroes and villains and that kind of thing, and I didn't really want to go too much into reading about it, just kind of want to go into it blind. But this is the book that my little reading club Facebook group is reading for the month of April, so I will be reading this. And that's quite a big book too, 556 pages. Alright, well that is my entire TBR for April, and I'm hoping I can get through all of these books, and if I'm lucky, maybe I can get through a few more. I don't know about that, but you never know. Alright, well, have you read any of these? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Comment below and let me know. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, bye!